Okay, so let's continue on with the Sprite Kit template. Obviously, if you're just jumping right in, you didn't watch the last video, we just broke apart some of what was already occurring in the Sprite Kit template, or I might have called it the Hello World template because I'm so used to referring to these as Hello World templates. Well, that's what it did. It said Hello World before. No more. Now it says your score was. But we're going to move on down to the what we haven't played with yet, which is the touches began statement and the update statement right here. And let's pick on this guy first. This is one of those oddities in some sense that if you were to begin typing it, or not, actually let's type in one of the sister lines here. If you were to write in just TOUC, you're going to start to see that Xcode is giving you some other options here, and just kind of these are just methods that already know what to do, and you don't really have to do much else with them. Okay, so for example, if I write in here touches ended, it's going to fill in all the rest of it, and I just got to put in the opening and closing bracket, and then I need to deal with the touch ending. Okay. Or I don't really have to deal with it. I can just leave it alone at this point. But I do have now a line of code that is automatically getting called, whether I do something with it or not, when a touch has ended. So it's no longer touching the screen, and obviously that's what this one does, is it deals with when we are touching the screen. And what are the parameters in here? Well, they're basically these touch objects that that are storing which is pretty simple data, your touch data here, your location. Okay, that's what you're concerned about when you touch the screen, right? And let's do this. Let's ignore that stuff. And for right now, let's just send a message to the output window. So we're going to say nslog touched the screen. And what is an nslog statement? Well, that is going to send a message to the output window and give us an indication that what we assume we're doing is actually correct, which is, for the most part, how you use your log statements. You make an assumption, and you test to see if it's true. So touch ended, and that's all I'm going to put for this one. Okay. Notice there's no for statement or anything else inside of my touches ended method. All right, so we're going to run this again. And here we go. So I'm going to click down, and when I do that, the code that's already in here is creating that spaceship for us. But the important thing is that our touched the screen log statement ran, and our touch ended statement also ran inside of here. So we know that these are both working. That's always a good sign. And again, log statements, you assume one thing, you should test it. Don't assume that something's working just because you wrote the code in there for that. All right, well, actually, I guess I can leave that in there. Okay, so moving on down here, what this for statement is doing is it's saying for the particular touch in touches, and this touches is, well, let's select this one, nsset an ordered collection or unordered collection. Okay, I guess you could think of it like an array if you're familiar with that term, but so basically what we're going to do is we're going to iterate here through all the touches that occurred. So if it's one touch, two touch, three touches, it's going to go through and it will run this code for every one of those. But here's a little gotcha. So don't try to touch the screen multiple times just yet. Our CS view controller would actually have to have multiple touch enabled set to yes for you to see multiple touches occurring inside of here. And this is a line that I added to the view controller, and you don't have it. So what you'll need to do is write skview.multiple touches enabled equals yes. And let's dive back down here. We're going to need to stop the simulator from running. Let's run it again. And how do you touch twice if you just got the mouse? Well, you can hold down the option key, and then you'll notice that you get these kind of like two fingers right here. So I'm going to click now with that held down, and you'll notice that I got two of those spaceships in there. I didn't have to change the code at all because remember, we're iterating through the number of touches that are occurring. Okay, so for every one of these touches, all right, so every single one, we'll refer to it as touch inside of here, and run through the code. And let's look at that. So we have a CG point, and remember what our CG points are. We talked about them right over here. They're just an X and Y location. So what we're doing is we're creating a variable that is a structure that just basically contains an X and a Y location. And then we're calling this method on our first touch. Okay, so we're just basically returning here the X and Y location of where that occurred at. And if we were to kind of keep our eyes over here, it says returns the current location of the receiver in the coordinate system of the given node, blah, 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 blah. Basically where your finger's at, okay? And now our location here stores where we touched. And let's try this. Let's go and write in here ns log. And again, I'm starting with the @ symbol, the equal signs, and then I'm going to throw a little curveball at here. I'm going to put in %, and then I guess I'll go with I for integer, and then I'm going to put in here location.x. Alright, so it might not like that. Okay, alright, sorry. Let's try that again. Those x locations are floats, so they're decimal values. Why am I so stupid? Gosh, I should have known that. Alright, so location x is, and then I'm just going to make things a little simpler here. I'll copy down that second line and put location y is, so that %f gets replaced by what's after this comma. Alright, so there's the variable, there's the property of that variable. Okay, and that's you didn't have to set up that property or anything like that. A CG point is always going to have a .x and a .y value to it. Okay, it's a structure containing two values. That's what they are. And now if we were to run this again and touch down, I'm just going to use one finger this time. I should be able to see that the location x is 224 and 6/8. Okay, continuing on, I actually had to make a quick edit there because I misspoke about this line coming up, and I'll tell you why. Our next line here is going to be SK Sprite node. This is our most common line for creating pretty much anything that you're going to see on the screen here. And the instance name for this is Sprite. And by the way, I did go ahead and put the pointer snuggled up against the class name. And it's kind of where I think it belongs. Equals, and then we repeat over here that class name again. This time we don't need the pointer. And this is our initializer, basically getting this thing initialized. Okay, Sprite node with image named, and then we follow that up with the @ sign, and then inside the equals the name of the image, spaceship. What I thought you could do is write PNG, but I guess they don't prefer that anymore, that you throw in the extension, even though this has been added as a resource outside of these fancy new asset catalogs. I thought you could get away with it, but nope, guess not. So again, there's a couple ways that you can add files in here, images that you want to use. You can create a new one over here, and a new image set. This could be there we go. Oh, name it over here. Some image, right? And then that's what you're going to refer to it in your code as, some image. Okay, and then you just drag in whatever you want to put inside of here, and that'll get copied into your project. You can always go find those images by right-clicking Show in Finder. Okay, so moving right along. There are other ways that you can initialize a SK Sprite node, and if you just get rid of this, you can put escape in here and start typing. You'll see Sprite with node color, Sprite with texture. We'll get to those things later, but for right now, let's just go back and use that spaceship. And then Sprite.position is going to equal that location, so wherever we touched at. Here we go. We're using this again now. All right, we used it over here and here before. Now we're kind of really using it, but don't think that you're limited to doing that. You could put in here CG point make. You could put in location.x and then location.y. Right? That's the same thing that we just had, but before we just wrote location. Now what we're doing is we're making it so that we could put in some extra values here. So we could put in plus, or maybe let's try minus 500. So it just goes almost off screen when we click it in there. And let's see what happens. And remember, because the position here is expecting a CG point, you can see that it's expecting a CG point if we were to, or it is a CG point, I should say. So if we're going to make it equal to 1, we need to give it a CG point value as well. You can see that when we didn't have this, we had just location there. So a CG point equals a CG point, right? That's why that worked. All right, so back to this. It did publish out here, and let's click, and you'll see that I'm going to click clearly over there, but it put the spaceship way down there at the bottom of the screen. So we have subtracted 500 from the Y value right there. And again, putting this right here is pointless. If we're not going to do any math on it, we might as well just put in location. Okay. All right, now the next line here, SK action. We're going to look a lot at actions later, but again, this is a type of class that executes different actions, all right? And they're just giving the instance name for this as action. And then again, you put the class name right here, and then the action here is going to be rotate by angle, and then this is m_pi, which is declared in your math, which is basically, I guess, you know, whatever, pi. And the duration here is going to be 1 second. So it's going to take 1 second to rotate this guy around. Well, it looks like it's going a little slower than a second, but who knows? So that's the duration property, and then let me do this. Let me put these two lines kind of closer together because they are definitely coupled. All right. So once you've created your action, then what you're going to do is come down here and write Sprite run action, and you could have just gotten away with this, just writing action inside of here. And if you'd done that, let's publish it again. Nothing breaks, but that just rotates around once. And I guess actually it's rotating around 1/2 cycle, so that's what the m_pi is. Huh? I knew that it didn't look long enough to be going around a full cycle in a second. But what they did here is they snuck in a whole other method, which is SK action repeat action forever, and they're specifying that action right here. And this could have been divided up into 2 lines or 3 lines altogether. You could have also put in here SK action repeat, right? So we're going to name this action repeat, and then we'll make it equal to that right there. And then instead of putting in that method after run action, we can just put in that instance name. And it doesn't like that I forgot to put a semicolon after that. Okay. So we'll stop this. And let's try it one more time. So there we go. So just a longer way of writing that, but I think it's actually a little bit easier to understand for beginners. So let's leave that as is. And then finally, we without this line down here, we didn't do anything. Okay, so if we were to take this off and publish it again, we're not going to see anything because we didn't actually add the sprite to the scene. All right, let's add in this though. Let's write in sprite.name, and we're going to call this spaceship. Now we've given this an identifier so that we can find it later on in other code. Okay, because once we step outside of this method, right, the compiler here, our code doesn't know what we're talking about if we just put sprite in here. Okay, has no clue, right? But if we were to, let's come down here, put in SK sprite node, some node. Let's give it a different instance name instead of spaceship. Some node, and this is going to equal self child with node name. And now we're going to repeat back our name. We've got our spaceship back. We're getting that little warning right there because we're not using it with anything. Oh, and you know what? Incompatible. Oh. Sorry. Now maybe I'll get the unused. There it is. So sorry about that. When we're finding something by a generic name like this, it prefers for us to just assume that it is any old type of node. All right, so our SK node is just our most basic node type, kind of our basic object, the building block of the entire universe right here. And then we could class that as a SK sprite node later on, depending on what we needed to do. In this case, let's just use it for anything, and let's make it equal some node dot alpha. Okay, every SK node has an alpha property. Okay, so the alpha property isn't specific to just SK sprite nodes. It's also something that we can apply to an SK node, and let's just make it the alpha equals 0.5. Okay, so now I think what should happen here, and let me just double check my ranges. So I'm going to click on that, and the default value is 1. Yep, okay, the range is 0 to 1. So what should happen here is when we click down, we're going to create the spaceship, and then when we let go, so when the touch ends, it's going to go find that node again, and it is going to make it half transparent. I hope. We shall see. Drum roll, it's loading up in the background. Taking a little bit long. Okay, here we go. Click down and let go of it, sure enough. So it successfully found that ship, and it made it half transparent. And same thing will happen. Oh, actually, well, I wasn't set up for this example yet, but so it's like I've stepped on a landmine. I'm not taking my finger off of the mouse yet. When I let go, I think chances are it's gonna make the previous node even more transparent, because I now have two nodes on here that are both named spaceship, and in the searching order of things, I think it's going to go find the previous one first and then do that action. But let's see, and I guess it just decided that nobody should be. Oh, well, you know what? This I think I was still correct there. This was not an incremental effect. All it does is it set the alpha at 50% again, so it didn't take it down another 50%. So yeah, I think I was correct about that one. And let's do this. We can expand this example here. There is a way to search through all of our nodes that we have on there and make all of them half transparent. I am interested. I mean, I do kind of want to prove this. That let's try this. Some node.alpha times 0.5. So if it equaled 1 by default, the first time this runs, it should equal 0.5, and then that will keep stepping it down because it's going to always use the most recent alpha value subtracted by half. So click on this guy, do it again. Yep, sure enough, he's ghosting away into the background. Okay. Yay! I was kind of correct there. Okay, so let's speed things along here. I feel like I only got a few minutes left, and I do want to talk about the update statement. So let's not worry about the rest of this. I didn't really have anything planned in there anyway, but we'll continue kind of looking through nodes with the name spaceship, but we'll do it inside of our update method. And this is a great explanation for what that update method does. It's called before each frame is rendered. And again, this is one of those magic lines of code that whether you specifically call this method or not, it's running. Okay, it's occurring at the frame rate. Every single frame this method gets run. I know it's kind of baffling in some sense that code can go through this stuff so fast, but that's just how things are. So again, same with our touches ended and touches began. They're just kind of always out there listening out for those events, and the update is always running. So if I put in here, if I were to throw in here a log statement, that's just going to go through 60 times per second, right? Crazy. So here is our solution to finding every single one of our nodes with the name spaceship. Again, every time we click, we add another one of them. So after a while, we got quite a few to deal with, and that's where this line comes in. If we write self enumerate child nodes with name, what we're doing is we're just asking, can you give us a node with the name spaceship? And if this line can, if it can find a child with it, we're going to use this block. Okay, and really it's just kind of this block, what's between the opening and closing brackets right here. Whatever we do inside of here gets called, all right? And it's not going to ever find the same node twice, all right? It's going to go through every single one of them in order, every single one of the children on stage. And but it would find if there were 5 of them added to the stage within this single update statement, within that one frame, it's going to run through this 5 times. Okay, so if and we're passing into this block these parameters right here. Okay, and there's 2 of them, node and this Boolean value, which is just yes or no, with the variable name stop. And we don't need to worry about that. I'm not going to stop enumerating this at any point. So all we really care about is the node right here. And if we find a node with the name spaceship, then we can write node dot, we can put in here anything we want, but position, I'll just adjust the position value, and we'll set this to CG point make. Again, I'll put back in here node dot position dot x. Okay, and so I'm breaking apart the CG point here, the CG point value, and I'm just going to get the x part of it, and I'm going to subtract 3 from that, and then on this side of things, on the other side of the comma, I'm just going to write node.position.y, and that's going to not make any change to it. Alright, so whatever the current value is, it's just going to stay at that, but this one is going to get subtracted by 3 pixels. And now let's see what happens. Click right here and you'll see that spaceship go off the stage. Click here, click here, click here. They are all gonna start drifting off to the side because every one of them has that name spaceship, and everyone is being told that on every single frame that you've got to move off 3 pixels. And that's how you take care of that. Okay, so I think you guys have a kind of more elaborate template now, or at least some extra code added to it. And among those nice little snippets, you've got the enumerate line here, finding a child by the name. We've broken apart your action so it's a little bit more readable for new people. We've worked with the name property, and you saw how to send some output messages to the window there. And yeah, we'll move on to a lot more, and hopefully this wasn't too much of a jump straight into the deep end, but I think I kind of want to keep a good pace for people that are new but also are old programmers. So more to come.